All right, welcome back. We are COMP1115. That's Game Programming 1 in the fall 2025 semester at Georgia. I don't want to say these things sometimes. And it's week 11, part 3 of our broadcast and recording. And, and when we left off, it was a bit of a challenge. Actually, I should just say these slides. Challenge, this is the time that you have to work and try some stuff out, right? But let's get to that part that you had to build, which was um, the start form. Okay, so start form is going to look like this. And what I normally do when I think about making a form is I right click and I go add. I could have gone to new item, but there's also a quick way of doing it right here with form, Windows Forms, which allows me to make a start form. Here we are. And now when I have the start form, it looks like this. Not quite right. I want to resize it approximately where it's going to be. I want to add in the form controls that I want. And I know that if I go back to this, it looks like it's probably going to be around the same, stuff that I have here. One quick way of doing this would be set the font for the form before you add the buttons. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to font and I'm going to change this to whatever font I want, which is Calibri 12 point. It's going to change the size of the form because it responds to the font that I've added in, but I'm going to resize it back to normal. I know that the form cannot have a control box that has a maximize button, so I'm going to get rid of that. It's because the maximize box doesn't make any sense in this context, so I'm going to get rid of that. So no maximize docs. And also what I want is for this form to be center screen, so the start position will be center screen. That's important to note too. I want to give even numbers for the form. So instead of size being 564 by 760, let's make it 560 by 760 just to make sure that it's even. That's just my thinking, right? Now that I have this, I can start adding a button, and the first button I'll add will inherit the font that I gave it before. Let's call this button underscore new. So button underscore new, there it is. And then I want to change the button so that it says new character. I'm not going to change the color yet because I know that I'm going to make this thing what I want to make it. I'm going to kind of make the button a standard size that I want to use. Right now the size is 240 by 776. Let's make it 240 by 75 just to make it something that's the same as everything else. I've got one button. I want to add in two more. Control C, Control V will give me, when it feels like it, a button that's a copy of the other one. There we go. And a copy again. So I've got two buttons there, and they're all white right now, and that's okay. So I want to use these to basically align. So I want to kind of do one of these. I want to kind of compare it to the image that I have. I've got a lot of room down there and some room up there. I don't have to make it exact, but this is not bad, right? This will give me enough room if I want to add other buttons in the future. So right now I want to take the top button and the bottom button and then do this kind of alignment so that they're equally spaced, right? I don't know that they're exactly aligned to the right and left, and that's okay, right? I'm okay with that. Here, what I want to make this is change this number, this button here to button load, right? So again, it's going back to our design, new character, load character, or exit altogether. And this will be the button exit. And this should say exit, exit. And this should say load character. We need some colors. So I'm going to use green, blue, and nothing for that one. So green for this one. Again, for the back color, I'm probably going to use some kind of green. Doesn't really matter what. So back color, I'm going to go into the web, and I'm going to use a web color like something like dark forest green, or forest green maybe. And then the for color, it's too dark. I'd like to have some good contrast, so I'm going to use something like a control color or something else, right? So window color might be okay. And for this one, it's going to be blue. So I'm going to go to the back color and change that to what I like, which is hot track. And then again, for the for color, I can change this so that again, it's window for this one. So I've got the colors now, and it's looking pretty good in terms of the way it is. I can't test it yet because I have to install it, but I want to include all the default events for all these buttons right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is double click on my new character, and then I'm going to go back and double click on my load character, and then I'm going to double click on my exit character, exit button. I also want the form closing event, so I'm going to click on that, and I want to go to the little lightning bolt, and I know the form closing is something that I want to include, so there's the other one. The form closing event is there as well. So those are all the ones that I want for to prepare for what I'm going to be doing. This is pretty good. And before I launch everything, I've got the user interface and the default stuff. Let's put this up on GitHub. So view terminal, and I'm going to do something like git add git commit -m, and we'll say added UI for start form. That's all I've done. And now I need to insert this properly into my program.cs. So what I want to do here is what I did earlier, which is in my form type, add selection in there. I already have start. That's what's happening. But I also want to add the start form here. So again, I'm going to go to public static start form, and that's going to be called start form as well. Make sure that it's named properly. Then down here inside the initialization section, start form is equal to a new start form. There we go. So now I have that. And then splash form, selection form in between there, I'm going to put in start form. And with that being done, I should be able to test out my code, and it should start off my start form first, because my splash form, if you recall, if I go there, here's my splash form. It already calls start form right here, right? So start form will be launched after my splash form is launched. Let's try this out. So run, and I should be able to see my character generator splash form, and then my start form runs, but I don't do anything yet because none of these are functional. All right, so let's make it so it's all functional. So next, we're going to go back to this. I'm going to grab some of the code. I've done all this already, and I want to do this part next. So I'm going to grab this piece of code here for my button new click event, which is going to be in my start form. There it is. And then I want to grab in the next part, which is going to be my application exit, in my exit button. That's right here. And then I'm going to do my confirm exit, which is the thing we coded last week, in my form closing. Now what's left is the button load click event, which is something that I'm going to do here. I've already done this part, and I've already done this part and this part. So now this is the one part that I have to do, which is something that I want to use. So I'm going to grab this part, put that over here, put it inside my button load click event. Here it is. Shouldn't have any issues now. And let me even take some of these comments, which are okay, and put them on top of this. There we go. So now I should be able to load the form. Now there's a trick here. One thing I also asked you to do is we have to make sure that in the selection form, when the character is being loaded, to check to see if this flag, I'm making the switch thing again, this flag has been set, right? So what I've done in the program.cs is actually set this up. This has loaded character as another flag. We have two flags. Is exiting, which is a flag, checks to see if that flag is turned on, a switch, turning on or off. Same thing with has loaded character. Is it on? If it's loaded, then what I want is for selection form to check to see if this is true, and if it is, load the form. This works somewhat, but there's a bug, and we're going to talk about this bug in a second. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to selection form. That's kind of outside of what I've asked you to do, but let's do it anyway. So selection form. And inside of selection form, there is another event that has to happen. Selection form has to have the load event. So again, I can go to the lightning bolt and go to load, double click onto it, and it should create the selection form load event right here. Selection form load is listed right here. Let's copy paste that. And I want to talk about this a little bit as I do that. Here's the event. What it does is it checks to see if the program has loaded character is true. Remember, we set this inside of the start form. Start form's here. When it loads, it's going to say program has loaded character is true. But this is a problem. And this is a problem because what if I load a character that's empty? It's going to throw an exception, and then, but it's still going to say has loaded character is true, which means it's actually going to cause that exception to happen anyway. That's the bug, and I'm going to fix this in a bit, all right? But for now, this is pretty good, and it's allowed me to kind of do this. And what all this does is it just takes everything I've loaded into the settings file and assign it to the text value here for all of them. The only one that's a little trickier is this, because I need to take the selected species and then check to see what it is. If it's human, check the radio button that's human. If it's the other ones, check the other radio buttons, and so on. When we check the radio buttons, understand that you're actually generating an event, which is the check changed event, which is right here. So actually, when you're selecting the radio buttons, you're also reselecting the species right away. So be aware of this relationship. Maybe there's another way to do this, okay? Then compute secondary attributes, because we have to do that because we're loading it, and then set up a show toast that basically says, hey, character's loaded, positive green message. Okay, that's what this does. Wonderful. So let's see, this is what it's supposed to do, but we can't test it because we don't have a file to test with. So what I've done is I've said to you, let's make a new saves folder in the downloads folder. So that's inside of your operating system. I've already got this, but that's inside the downloads folder. I have a saves folder already. And instead of having a saves folder here, I'm just going to delete the character I made. So I show you how this is done. So I've made the saves folder. And in terms of making a character file, I can right click and add in a new text file. That's what I've done, text document. And here, all I have to do is rename this entire thing to character.chr. So character.chr, there it is. It asks me if I'm sure. Yes, I am, right? And if I double click onto it, then this is where I can put some data. But I want to test to see if my, my stuff works properly, and it doesn't. And I'm going to show you why it doesn't. So I want to generate a exception. So let's run my code. Let's try this out. So I run it, and what you should see now is character generator. If I go new character, it should just do what I did before. Okay, so that's there before. I can still do everything that I did before, as an example, and it'll take me to the final form with everything else that I did before. So that's all the same functionality that I had previously. But now, if I run it again, and if I choose load character, this is where the problems come from. Load character allows me to load this. This is what you should see. Notice that the filter allows me to pull down character files or all files if I want to, right? And I want to go into saves, and I have one character file, but it's empty, right? So if I do this, we should get a file format exception, and we should be dealing with it. And we do, but we also continue anyway. Let me explain. So if I open this up, we got that red little thing here, but then we have a break. And this is a system format exception. You can actually see that this is a problem. The input string was not in a correct format. Straight up, that's what you get, right? So why did this happen? Well, let's go through it a little bit so you understand where my error is, right? Because it was my error when I coded this thing in the first place. So I want to point this out to you. Now, you wouldn't have known this if you just followed the instructions. You would just put the data in, and it would have looked great. But what about the errors? How do you code those? How do you check those? And always try and make something fail is the answer, my friends, before you make it succeed. Red, green, then refactor. That's the way we test. So let's go back to making it fail. So here's the failure. Well, if I click the load button, then it goes to the load character. Let's go there. Go to definition. Load character basically checks to see if the file is not empty, which we did nicely right here, right? It throws an exception, a file format exception, which goes down here, file format exception. And it creates a toast, which is red, which we saw. Okay, we couldn't see it because of the other problem we had, right? But it did create the toast, which is nice, okay? But then it continues, right? So it leaves this file and it goes back to my start form and it goes to the next line, which means, okay, has loaded character is true, wonderful. And then what we're doing is we're actually program forms show this selection form. Well, that means I go to the selection form, and because I have my load event that I just coded, which is this one, the load event triggers and it says, hey, is the program has loaded, is that true? It is true. So we try and load data. Once we start loading data, there's nothing to load, crashes. Why? Because nothing is stopping it from going here. We need to have a different way of doing things. And I've detailed that in another couple of slides today. I added these in today, which is bug fixes, bug fixes. It's right here, right? And I kind of talk about it here in the code, which is these two lines of code need to be combined. How do we do that? Well, what we need to do is we need to change our load character so that it is a Boolean, okay? Now, this doesn't disrupt what you did. If you were able to follow along and finish your part of the start form, wonderful. This is something else. This is me testing to see if I can make it fail. I never asked you to do that, right? So this is what I'm showing you. So let's see if I can do that. I'm not going to actually, those little slides are for you if you you fall behind. But here is what I need to do. So in the program.cs file, instead of my load character returning void, let's return bool, right? So what bool does is it allows me to check to see if it's true or false. Did I load the character right? Yes or no? That's what I'm basically saying here, right? So if I throw an exception, it's going to take me into these exception areas here. And so if it takes me into an exception, we're going to return false, right? Because it's an exception. We didn't do it properly, right? So something was wrong and we returned false. That's what this does here. In the show toast, after the show toast, we're going to return false. However, what if we pass through all this and there's no issues? Then when we load everything in the settings, then we're going to return true. So just under the settings area, we're going to return true. What this does is it basically checks to see that everything is good when we get to this part right here, and we're returning true. Great, so let's save that. How do we check to use that now? Well, we can combine both lines. So if I go back to my start form, right, then in here, instead of doing program has loaded as true, that's not always true. It really depends on load character. So what I can do is I can take this, and because load character returns a Boolean, true or false, I can take that and assign it to this, right, and get rid of this. And that is, my friends, is how it should be coded, like this, not the other way. I kind of said it in my PowerPoint where it says, as stated earlier, no programmer is perfect, and we found a bug in our code. That's my bug that I didn't realize that I had coded, right? So now let's check this out and see if it works again. So I have an empty file, and let's run this thing. So I run it, and if I run this nicely, and if I put load character, and I load in an empty file, which is what this thing is, then I'm going to get an error that says format error, character file is empty. But it went really fast. I think it's actually too fast to toast. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to even slow down the toast a bit. So let's go into my toast form. So toast form again. And I want to click on the toast timer, and let's double the length of time. So let's say 3,000 milliseconds or 3 seconds, so that I can actually see what the error is. Okay, let's try this again. So I'm going to run this thing. So I don't want to time out, so I'm going to continue. Load character, and then I'm going to go to saves, click on character.chr, press open, and you're going to see that it pops up. It tells you there's an error that opened, but it still gave a selection form. It didn't stop operation. It just said that, like, it wasn't loaded properly, kind of thing. This is good. Let's try it again by adding in some data. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, and way over here where I said to add in the data for your form, let's add in some of this. So we'll add in this we'll grab all this, and then inside of my little form, I'll add all that, but I'll remove the last one, all right? So this one it's only going to have, it's going to have one line short. Everything is here. It's not empty anymore, but it's going to have one line short of what it was before. Let's try this one and see if we can generate that error. So again, it's going to be like this. And then I'm going to go load, and I'm going to go into saves, character, and I'm going to press open. And now it's going to give me another error, invalid character file, right? So that's the second error that we saw, okay? Invalid character file. All right, so that is the next one, right? And we kind of did this. And then we can put it back. If we put human, and then the career is army, and if I save, now it should load properly. Let's see how this works. So now we did red, red, green. We didn't test the other one, but from a time perspective, I'm losing time. I want to make sure that I can show you that it's going to work. So if I press play, and now if I have a proper file, if I load character and I load my character from my file and press OK, we should see a green message that says character loaded. And we can see that the character loaded too. And if I click next, it also goes down to here. Everything is beautiful in the world. Okay, Questions around this? This is what I wanted you to do for this part, except for the error part. The error part was me. I didn't need you to test errors. I tested the errors to make sure that it was working. It's working now. I'm going to go View, Terminal, and I'm going to say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added start form with all my bug fixes. There we go. Awesome. Next part is for you to do, and I'm not going to do this with you. So now that we have all the errors fixed and everything else, I want you to do the last part, which is updating your final form. The final form is for you to do. You're going to add in a save button. And this save button, when you click it, it's going to use the button save event. And what it's going to do is it's going to save the character. It's going to pull in the save file dialog, which is what we're going to use. And it's going to use all the stuff that we've already coded. We've already prepped a bunch to make this work already. So I want you guys to do this last part. And what it's going to look like again is something that looks like this. You're going to press new character. You're going to make a character this time. You're going to click next. I didn't put in the next form here. Next. And then you're going to get into the final form. It's going to show this. Then you're going to click the save button and it's going to pull up the save file dialog and you're going to save it as test character. And test character is the one that you're going to see. I want you to check to ensure that you have everything in here, right? So that when you double click on test character in a notepad or some other editor, make sure that you got all the stuff, your test files. And you can test a bunch of them out, making sure that your write to your file works, okay? So that's what I want you to try out. So I have the bug fixes area here, a few slides that I added in today. If you want to check those out, there's all the stuff that I just talked about with, if you missed that part, making your program has loaded character equal to program load character when you make this Boolean and you change these things that I put in here. But to track everything that we need to do for today, you can see here that this is the we do section. We've done all this together, right? So we're way over here. The you do section, we just did it. You did it first and then I followed up and did it again. You added the supporting code for the start form. You did that. We updated the splash form if necessary. We coded the start form with the basic code that we went in there. The selection form is there. When we had to update that because we had to check to see that the form is loaded before we did that. And then the final form is something that you're going to do. And that's really it for tonight. So you should be able to finish. I'm going to also post the video as soon as we're done. So you should have all that guidance plus all my code to make sure that you're good to go. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, I know CHR. I could have used something else. Data, something else. You can make whatever extension you want. I forgot totally about 3ds Max. Sorry about that. Right? It is. It's those pesky file associations. Absolutely. Any questions around this stuff? It shouldn't be bad. Anyone have terrible issues making this work? Yeah. So sometimes that happens with toasts and with forms that we're making. And the question is, what if the toast looks bad? Check to see that some things that we have here are coded properly. The size and the minimum size should be the same. Okay, make sure that that is true. Okay, then make sure that you've positioned your form in the appropriate spot. Okay, so if your text at the bottom somehow, it's because your your size and your minimum size are wonky, right? It's a little bit of trial and error too. I'll be honest, right? So that's something that I had to figure out when I was doing it. Okay, any other questions? My friends, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate, I know it's always challenging when we're remote. It's not as fun as when we're together. So size and minimum size have to be the same. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording now. And if you need anything, I'm going to stick around for anyone who has any kind of questions or concerns. Okay. So I'm going to stop recording now. Good luck.